Hello, welcome back to the My Clayco studio. I'm Tegan and I am here today to take you through embedding bezels and charms in polymer clay. Now, I love embedding bezels and charms in my polymer clay jewellery because I find it's a really simple and easy way that you can really change the look of your clay jewellery. There is also something about adding metals to your polymer clay jewellery that adds an extra layer of sophistication to it. And if you are a handmade earring or jewellery maker, it is something that you can do to differentiate yourself from others in the market. So what are we going to be running through today? I'm going to be giving you a quick look at the basic tools that I use. We are then going to be looking at the two vital things that you need to know so that you can embed your bezels and charms in your jewellery. And last but not least, we are going to be doing some creating together and I am going to show you some examples of how you can embed these bezels and charms in your polymer clay jewellery. So let's get into it. So first up, the materials and tools that we'll be using today. Now there are a couple of obvious ones. One of them is polymer clay, so I'm going to be using Sculpey and Cernit today with our creating. The other one is the bezels and charms that we're going to use. So we're going to be using the bezels and charms that we do stock on our website. These bezels are 304 grade stainless steel. I love them because I have literally never had them tarnished. That is something that is important to me. Likewise with the charms, and the other thing I love about the charms is that they do have a mirror polish on them, so they really look top notch. But you can obviously use whatever bezels and charms that you have available. Now, the other two things that are definitely a necessity, one of them is your roller. So we're going to be using this to not only roll out our clay, but also for the actual embedding process. The other thing that we will need is a craft knife. Now, you use this for cutting around the bezel and cutting through your clay. You will notice that I do also have some cutters here. Now, these cutters, we actually have made them so that they fit our bezels and charms, and it was just because we were looking for a quicker and easier way that we could use this embedding technique. They're not a necessity, but they do make it a little bit easier. So again, we do have these on our website, but if you don't have them, that's totally fine. You can just use a craft knife. Now, there are two really important things that you need to remember when you are embedding bezels and charms in polymer clay. So the first one is you should roll your clay a little bit thinner. So if you're wondering what thickness, we normally make our earrings about 2 to 3 millimeters. I definitely err on the 2 millimeter side. I just find that rolling your clay a little bit thinner, you get a cleaner look, and you will find that if you're using a craft knife to cut through your clay, it will be a lot easier than trying to cut through a really thick piece of clay. Now, the other really important thing you need to know is that you need to secure your bezels and charms in place. So I know a really common one that you'll probably see is using UV resin over the top to make sure that they're secure. But I do have a couple of other options that I'm going to show you for those people that don't use resin. So let's get into some examples. So first up, we're going to be having a bit of a play with some basic circle bezels, and I'm going to be using some water transfers with these. So we have our pre-conditioned clay here, and I've got two because I just thought I would do two different ways. So I'm going to do one where I am cutting around it with the tissue blade, and then I'm going to do the other one with the cutter. So I'm just burnishing this to my tile. All right, so let's get our water transfers on here. Now, so we've got our beautiful koi water transfer, and I'm just going to pop that on here. And we also have our floral tiles one that I'm going to do on here. Now, you will find if you're using water transfers, they are pretty much all different. So you just need to make sure that you read the instructions. These are the ones that we stock. So I'm just going to basically burnish this onto my clay here. And then we are just going to pour the water in here. So these are water soluble ones. So you will get different types. Some of them you like run underwater and stuff. And you kind of wipe away the goop. Ours are a little bit different. They're a thicker cardstock. So we are just going to wait a moment and then we are going to peel these up. All right, so we'll just have a quick look and check that they're ready to go. Yes, it looks good. Peel that one away. And yeah. Peel that one away. All right, and I'm just going to pour off the excess water here. I'm definitely going to have to wipe down my bench because I've made a bit of a mess here. Now, you don't have to worry with water transfers if you do have some water on them. When you bake them, that will obviously evaporate, but because we are doing these with the bezels, I do just want to let me grab my bezels. So I'm going to go with gold for the coys. And on this one, we'll go the silver bezels. And I'm just going to press these down a bit so they catch where I want them. And then we are going to just very lightly roll. You can also use an acrylic clay press to press them into your clay. Beautiful. All right, so with this koi one, I'm just going to show you how to do it with the craft knife. So basically all that we're doing is just cutting around. And onto our second one. So you can see why you don't want the clay too thick, because if you did have it thicker than this, it would be quite hard for us to use this very small craft blade to cut around. I have done it thicker and it tends to catch. Now don't worry too much if these aren't staying stuck, because they won't. The next part of the process is us securing them. So, and I find particularly if you do these with water transfers, you will find that the bezel does slip and slide around a little bit. But now is the moment of truth to see how well I've actually cut these, and I'm quite nervous because look, I'm not great at this. But if we just peel these up now, hopefully I've done a good enough job. Let's just press them back in, and then if you do notice that you've got any bits that are sticking out, so I can see that I've got some here, you can just go and tidy it up a little bit there. We have a bit of a look. Cool, they're going to look very cute. All right, and on to our next one. So our next one, I'm actually going to be using this cutter. That is probably why I'm not as experienced doing this with the craft knife, because I do normally use the cutter just because it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to pop this around here. Now, excuse me if my head gets in the way, but I just want to make sure I've got that bang on. Beautiful. Again, it doesn't matter if it's slipping and sliding around. And then we can just peel these back. Beautiful. And we have our perfect circles with our bezels. I'll give you a look at that one. All right, so we have our bezels embedded. They're looking great. Let's get them in the oven. So next up, I'm going to show you a bit of a different technique that's especially great for people that don't use UV resin. I really love it as well because it adds a little bit of extra dimension to your pieces. So we're going to be using some of these teardrop bezels for our next one. And again, I have my conditioned clay rolled to about 2 millimeters thick, and I am just going to burnish both of these to the tile. Now, this technique that I'm going to show you is a really good one if you don't use UV resin. The circle ones that we just did are great candidates for UV resin. They look awesome with it, but these ones we won't be. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop my bezels on here. So we've got them ready to go. And because we don't have that water transfer in this one, you will find that they stick a bit better. The water transfers do slide around a little bit. But what I'm actually going to do, so I'm going to cut out a couple of these Lotus Bud bits here, and then we're going to use them to help secure the bezel in place. So I will just cut a couple of these out. Okay, pull this away. So, and what I'm going to be doing is putting these Lotus Buds at the bottom of the bezel. So I'm going to be using the cutter again. If you don't have these cutters, again, you can just use a craft knife. That's no problem. Just makes it a little bit simpler if you do have these. So again, I apologize if my head gets in the way here. Just trying to do it in a way that I don't block it for you guys. Okie dokie, and I'm just going to get these up with the tissue blade so they're all ready to go. And then we are going to embed these two. So just going to roll over here like we did with the last ones so we can get them nice and embedded. They look great. And I am then going to cut these out. All right, just peel away that excess clay. And then we are going to use these that we cut earlier. I'm just going to make sure that these little scraps are tidied before I place them on. And we will then place them on here. So because we're adhering clay to clay, we don't need to have anything underneath these. But essentially, this clay is going to hold that bezel in place. I do like to put a bit of varnish over the top just to make sure it is 100% not moving anywhere. because I find that the varnish does go in the gaps a bit and secure it that little bit more. But I do have a pair that I've used this method with, and they haven't gone anywhere. Bring this up so you guys can see it. Have a very cute pair, and I will go pop them in the oven, and then we're going to come back and we are going to do some embedding with charms. Okay, so we have our Gingko leaf charm here, and I've also got our Starry night charm, and I have my preconditioned clay, and we've also got cutters here. Again, as I've mentioned a couple of times, if you don't have cutters, that's totally fine. You can just cut it out with a craft knife. This one is tricky to cut out with a craft knife though, I will say that. Circular ones, definitely a bit easier. But we will just get this clay burnished a bit. All right, and I'm just gonna get the Gingko leaf charms, and we're just gonna pop them on the clay here. And now these, I want to make sure I have the mirror image of them so that we can have mirrored earrings. Pop them down there. All right, and then I will just roll these into our clay. So you can see here, I have just rolled this one just a little bit too deep. So I am actually going to take this one out. Yep. And we're just going to redo that one. It actually leaves a really beautiful imprint there. So, I mean, there's no reason why you can't use charms to imprint your pieces as well. So let me just cut this one off, and I'll be back in 2 secs with some fresh clay. Okay, so I have my fresh piece of clay here. I'm just going to pop that here. And I think this just goes to show, like, if you do stuff up a little bit like that, it's fine. I mean, charms are very easy to redo. So I'm just going to pop this one on here, and it has actually reminded me that another technique that you can use is to use an acrylic clay press to actually press them in. I still like to do a little bit of a roll. But now that one is looking perfect. So if we have a look at them, and our last step is just to cut these out. Okay, let's peel these up. Perfect. And Starry night charms. Oh, they look beautiful in that lilac mist colour. And I will give you a good look at these ones. So I'm going to get these embedded charms into the oven now, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can secure them. Okay, so with our pieces all baked, we can now get to finishing them. And the first thing I want to do is just give them a very light sand. So we're going to just pop them off here. Okay, they are all done, and we are just going to look now at putting something on them that is going to secure these bezels and charms in there. So the first one we might look at are the first ones that we've made. So we've got our water transfer ones here. Now I am just going to resin them. So we've got our resin here. I will pop back in a moment. I will just go get them resined. If you are using resin, it's really important that you wear the right PPE. So make sure that you've got gloves and a mask. You also want to work in a well-ventilated area. I use this lighter just to pop any air bubbles that might be there. So I'll just let these cure for about 4 minutes. So our resin pieces are done and they look amazing. Very happy with how they turned out. But I did promise you guys that if you didn't use resin, I was going to show you a couple of different techniques that you can do without resin. So first one here, so as you know, we made these with the Lotus Buds. They look great. And you will find that because we've put these clay bits here, that's really going to hold them in securely, but you might get a little bit here that might have that can potentially come unstuck if you look at that. So what we are going to do is just pop a tiny bit of super glue in there just to make sure it definitely stays put. Now, I did have some toothpicks. I have no idea where they've gone, so I'm going to MacGyver this a little bit, and I'm actually going to use this earring finding that I had lying around. So with the circle bezel ones that we've just done in the resin, you can also use this super glue technique. Now I did also just want to show you another option that you can use when you've got this kind of half secured method. You can just use a little bit of glaze on here. So I just have the Sculpey Satin Glaze. I have actually used this with bezels, and still to this day, the bezeled earrings that I have that I've popped a varnish over the top, and I did them like these circle ones, they haven't actually popped off. Now look, I don't 100% trust it, but if you do have this half securing it, you will find that the glaze does go in the gaps there and kind of keeps it in place. Okay, so we have these ones all done. Now, next two that we're going to do, I'll do these Gingko leaf ones first. So these ones, I am just going to take that off completely. Don't freak out, it's fine. And I'm just going to pop a few little blobs of this super glue on here where the charm is going to go. So, and again, you can use your toothpick or earring finding in my case just to make sure that it doesn't go on too thick. I'm using the Loctite gel control, and you can get quite good control with this, and it doesn't come out in too thick of blobs, so it will work for me here. Stuck there, and we have our two finished pieces here, and now all that you need to do is just drill a hole through the top here and you will be able to attach your findings. Now these last ones here, I did tell you that I was going to show you something a little bit different with these, so we're actually going to get out some acrylic paint pens. So I have these paint pens here, and we are just going to be using the white and the purple. They're just the Life of Colour acrylic paint pens, the normal version, so they do have a metallic one as well. But I'm just going to pop these off, and what we are going to do is actually colour the bits in here. Okie dokie. So we can see that they're now all coloured in, and then we are just going to leave them for about 10 minutes and then pop the satin glaze over them, because you do really want to seal acrylic paint pens. Now I've got that first one glued on, so we are just going to glue on the second one. Now the only thing left to do is to make these into earrings. I hope you've enjoyed our video today and it gives you some confidence with embedding your bezels and charms in your polymer clay. If you do have any questions at all, we're always happy to help. Please drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, we will see you